He was one of the world's few remaining absolute monarchs. But King Abdullah's years as crown prince might have marked his legacy even more strongly than his rule as king. He became de facto ruler in 1995 when his predecessor King Fahd had a stroke. At the time he was crown prince, but with a tremendous amount of power and influence. He was known to foreign diplomats as devout and conservative, with strong ties to the country's Bedouin tribes. But even then he pushed for change in the kingdom.
During his reign, he has inspired a greater openness in two particular areas, for women and in freedom of expression. There is an outburst of criticism, social criticism and also of government policy in Saudi Arabia that has happened with the, let's say, tolerance to some degree of the Saudi government.
When he took the throne in 2005, Abdullah had to overcome pressure from conservative clerics to continue his reform program, aimed at bringing together Islamic traditions with the needs of a modern state. He worked to trim the high spending habits of his large family and tackled youth unemployment by liberalizing the economy and stimulating the private sector. He also paved the way for municipal elections, granted women the right to vote and run for office, and issued them with ID cards, allowing them for the first time to do business without involving a male guardian. Abdullah's other major decision was to set up a council of royal elders to make the royal succession more orderly. But domestic concerns gave way to global ones when the United States was attacked on September 11, 2001. 15 of the 19 hijackers were Saudi citizens. He took on Al-Qaeda when the group began a campaign of bombings against Westerners in his country and told conservative clergy to stop preaching an intolerant version of Islam in schools and mosques. King Abdullah's next major challenge after September 11th and Al-Qaeda was Iran. The king's foreign policy focused on efforts to contain what the Sunni monarchy saw as the increasing influence of the Shia-led government of Iran. The Cold War-style battle between the two countries was played out in Lebanon and Syria. When former Lebanese Prime Minister Rafiq Hariri, who had been a strong ally of Saudi Arabia, was assassinated in 2005, many people blamed the Iran-backed Syrian government. The Iran factor also influenced Abdullah's stance towards the Arab Spring. He seemed to support regime change in Libya and to be lukewarm toward the revolutions in Egypt, Tunisia and Yemen. But by sending troops to support Bahrain's Sunni monarchy against Shia protesters, he may have revealed Saudi fears of an Iranian-backed revolution next door. Local demonstrations by Saudi Shia activists in the east of the country only exacerbated those fears. Saudi security forces cracked down on the protesters, raising controversy about the king's record on human rights. In recent years, activists who demanded change through petitions ended up in jail, and political parties and public demonstrations were banned. But generally, King Abdullah confronted his fears of an uprising at home in a different way. He spent $130 billion on housing, jobs and other social benefits in a bid to win the hearts and minds of the majority. His calculation worked. Despite online calls for a day of rage to protest against the lack of democracy, the anti-government protest never took hold. And the king remained a largely popular figure. His critics, though, believe he could have done more, given Saudi Arabia's vast oil wealth, to help his population.
People were convinced that a new law for the judiciary would actually make trials open and fair. That did not happen. People were convinced that there would be religious dialogue between Sunni Saudis and Shia Saudis. In fact, especially since 2009, we've seen communal relations deteriorate, often with the government playing the sectarian card against the Shia.
But now the stability the ruling class has enjoyed is under threat, not from looming poverty or a possible uprising, but from old age and a potential succession problem. The country has recently buried 2 crown princes and now a king. Crown Prince Salman, who's poised to take over from King Abdullah, is nearly 80. His deputy is Prince Muqrin, a younger, direct son of the founding father King Abdulaziz. With his appointment, the post of Deputy Crown Prince has been created for the first time, perhaps to reduce the probabilities of a succession crisis in the near future. but even he is nearly 70. The crown in Saudi Arabia passes among brothers before it goes to sons. In a few years, the last eligible direct son of King Abdulaziz, the founder of Saudi Arabia, will either have died or become incapacitated by age, which could leave several dozen royal grandsons vying for the throne. The Allegiance Council of Royal Elders created by King Abdullah was tasked with preventing such a problem. Its real test could be just around the corner.